Minutes of silence. Before we get started, I would like to take a minute to recognize the 9/11 attacks that occurred 22 years ago. This event has had a huge impact on Canada and still resonates in our memories. During the devastating day, we also saw the heroism of many. For that, I would like to thank emergency services, both those who worked hard that day to save lives and to our own everyday heroes who help in our community. And now a moment of silence to honor everyone who lost their lives as a result of those attacks, particularly the Canadians who never made it home. Thank you. The City of Belleville acknowledges we are meeting today on the traditional territory of many nations. The municipality operates on the unceded and unsurrendered lands of our Indigenous peoples. We recognize and honor the historic relationship of the Indigenous peoples to this land and acknowledge our shared obligation to respect, honor, and sustain these lands and the natural resources contained within. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who call Belleville their home and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship with them. We look forward to fostering a path towards reconciliation and show respect for the Indigenous peoples who first lived and currently live on the land where we now all reside together. I will call this meeting to order. We are all present, and please remain standing for a moment of reflection. City Clerk Matt McDonald.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Please be seated. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature of. Seeing none. Reading of confirmation of minutes, regular council meeting minutes of August 28th, 23. Moved by Councillor Kelly, Councillor Alsop. Discussion, all in favor? Carried. It's an honor now to welcome Joy Martin to the audience. If she would want to come to the podium, we have a special award. It's the Saunders Medal of Volunteerism and a national award that recognizes the achievements of volunteers across Canada. It is the highest honor for volunteer service in the country. Only those with exceptional passion, dedication, and commitment to their community, as well as having made a significant impact towards the betterment of Canada and eligible for the nomination. It is my honor to present this award to one of our own community members on behalf of the Governor General of Canada. For more than 2 decades, this person has been responding to emergencies and disasters both in Canada and abroad as a volunteer with the Canadian Red Cross. She is also someone who currently sits on our Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee this year. Joy, it's a pleasure for me to bestow this certificate and medal in recognition for all you have done both locally and abroad. Thank you for all the time and effort you have given to others in the community. The city's proud of you. This is quite the accomplishment. So we have a few things for you today. We have a beautiful certificate from and we have even more for you. So, signed by the Governor General of Canada. And I didn't open this box without you, so I don't know what's in here. Hopefully it's a medal. And, oops, I walked the wrong way. It's a beautiful. Well deserved. And thank you. Now, would you like to say a few words to council at all? Or? Okay. You knew I was going to put you on the spot then.
Yeah,
right?
I heard. It's just brief. Our community has so many good organizations and so many good volunteers dedicated to sharing their time, talent, and treasures for our individual and collective well-being. I have been on both the giving and the receiving end of some services in our community, and each experience has provided me the opportunity to be grateful, to be inspired, and to be hopeful. It does take a whole village, and we are one on this giving and receiving of kindness. Thank you.
Next, we have a correspondence, a letter from the Belleville Chamber of Commerce, the resolution that August 31st, 23, letter from the Belleville Chamber of Commerce requesting assistance with the Family Fun Fest Fall Edition on September 16th, 23, be received and referred to consent item 8B6. Councillor Enright Miller, Councillor Alsop, all in favor, carried. Now we go to a resolution that council rise and go into committee of the whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations and resolution with Councillor Brown in the chair.
Thank you, Mayor Ellis. The agenda shall include under reports, items that warrant individual attention from council. 8A1, long-term financing application, Ontario Infrastructure and Land Corporation. And the resolution reads that the 2023 capital budget be amended to adjust the funding sources for the new police station, the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center Energy Savings Project, and the Mineral and Maitland Road reconstruction as outlined in the Director of Finance Treasurer's Report DF 2023-18. And that a bylaw be prepared for the application to Ontario Infrastructure and Land Corporation for long-term financing for the new police station, the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center Energy Savings Project, and the Mineral and Maitland Road reconstruction. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Chatton and Councillor Alsop. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Thank you. The motion's carried. Next item, fire dispatch services contract, and the resolution reads that the request for proposal submission from the City of Peterborough be accepted for the supply and delivery of fire dispatch service for Belleville Fire and Emergency Services for a 5-year term in the amount of $1,858,769.99 plus $241,640.10 HST for a total dollar amount of $2,100,410.09, spread over the term of the contract. This being the only qualified proposal received, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the City of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal, and that pre-budget approval for the 2024 operating budget in the amount of $353,000 be approved for year 1 of the fire dispatch service contract with the City of Peterborough, and the funding being provided through taxation. A mover, please. Thank you, Mayor Ellis and Councillor Enright Miller. Any discussion? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, one question. I just happened to stop at the Hastings County building this morning. I was talking to the warden, and I noticed this was the only bid. Now, unfortunately, I didn't write down the areas that had gone to a different place in Ontario that's doing this. And I don't see that name here. And any particular reason why we only got the one bid and Quinte West has gone with a different dispatch service?
Through the chair. So we did the competitive bidding process. It was opened up across the province, specific to Ontario Fire Services with a professional entity through the IFF that provided fire dispatch. There were numerous municipalities or services that took the bid, reviewed it. Subsequently, only one came through approved. There was one other bid that was disqualified. Didn't meet the bid requirements, and in this case, we had the one successful bid. What I can add to that is staff are confident in the services that we'll be receiving from Peterborough. They have provided fire dispatch for themselves potentially since their inception, and then have also been dispatching for all of Northumberland County and all of Peterborough County fire services for a number of years.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I can't name the group that Quinte West went with. Do you know the name of that? I don't. That group that they went?
Yeah, the city of Quinte West has gone with the city of St. Catharines.
St. Catharines. And they never bid on ours.
They did bid. Unfortunately, their bid did not meet the requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chatton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I'm just wondering what the reasoning is behind the pre-budget approval portion of this resolution. Why are we doing a pre-budget approval for 2024 services?
So if I could just direct the question first to Director Ferguson.
Through the chair to Councillor Chatton. It is a timing issue in the fact that the operations of the fire dispatch are going to need to be set up and the contract is going to need to be put in place for the external dispatching prior to the approval of budget, in which case we actually need to pre-approve the budget to have established so that they can go forward with contracting them and paying for those services.
That's great, thank you.
Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. I have two questions, actually. Well, actually, no, just one question, but also a statement. You know, I certainly appreciate the fact that this is a cost-effective approach with next generation 911, and I know a lot of residents are probably wondering why we're looking at a contract service. The requirements from CRTC is just so extensive that the infrastructure is very expensive. So this is certainly a cost-effective way in terms of making sure we have proper dispatch coverage in our city. One question I do have, similar to the previous item where there's an impact on the tax levy for 2024, with the pre-budget approval portion, if I could, Madam Chair, through you to the Director of Finance, just ask what the impact on the 2024 tax levy will be with this pre-budget approval.
Director Ferguson.
Through the chair to Councillor Carr, it would be a 0.3% tax increase.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, called question then, please. All in favor? Thank you. The motion's carried. Item 8A3, 2023 Capital Budget Amendment, Replacement of Transit Bus Unit 1064. And the resolution reads that in accordance with Section 30.3, sole and single sourcing, approval and reporting of the city's purchasing bylaw number 2021-99, the quotation from Nova Bus Inc. be accepted for the purchase of one 2021 12-meter diesel transit bus demo in the amount of $591,114 plus $76,844.82 HST for a total of $667,958.82, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance of the agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal, and that the 2023 capital budget be amended to include the replacement of transit bus unit 1064 in the amount of $818,500 to be funded by the insurance proceeds. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Millette. Councillor Alsop. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Mr. Reid. I'm looking at the math in this, and I credit the department for going shopping for a used Nova bus, which I understand our transit staff are familiar with servicing and operating. And it's a used demo bus that is somewhere, I believe, in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or somewhere with a P, south of the border. But I see that the total cost is $667,000 for this used coach, and the insurance payout is $818,500 to be funded by insurance proceeds. My question is, the difference in the funds, is this just going to go into our general account for transit, or how does that work out?
Thank you. If you could
Or
direct,
Brandon?
I was just going to say, if I could direct the question to Director Ferguson.
Through the chair to Councillor Millette, those funds would come back into reserve. However, I would note that that is the bus cost only, so I believe there are some provisions as well slated for fare box upgrades, wraps, and etc. So there are some additional costs beyond the approval of just the bus. But any residual funds, yes, would be
Okay,
directed to
thanks.
reserve.
That explains that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Call the question. All in favor? Thank you. The motion's carried. Moving on to 8B, consent items. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider each such items individually. Going around the table, Councillor Thompson?
No, thank you.
Councillor Carr?
No, thank you.
Councillor Enright Miller?
No, thank you.
Councillor Alsop?
No, thank you.
Mayor Ellis?
No, thank you.
Councillor Chatton?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Millet?
Just to be different, 8B1, 8B2, and 8B5. We're not getting out of here as quick as you thought we were today.
And Councillor Kelly.
No, thank you.
So the resolution will read that the consent items be approved with the exceptions of item 8B1, 8B2, and 8B5. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Alsop, Councillor Chatton. All in favor? Thank you, the motion's carried. Going back to item 8B1, street name change Corrigan Place to Quick Street. Councillor, may I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Millet, Councillor Chatton. Councillor Millet, you asked to have this item pulled.
I have this one, and this will eliminate my questions on 2 and 5 as well. We're changing the name, and I understand the need of the change is because it conflicts Corrigan, as that is Corrigan Place, conflicts with a 911 mapping issue where there's a similar named street in Quinte West. Years ago, as I recalled, the method by which we name streets, and I guess this question would be directed to Mr. McDonald, the clerk, there was a list of potential street names for individuals, that sort of thing. And I noticed further down when we get into 8B, Raycroft Drive and road dedication again for Raycroft Drive and others. I noticed there are street names, Mavity Crescent, who we all might know who that's named from. My question is, where do we get Quick Street? Where are we getting Raycroft Drive? I know some of the developers may name their streets after them. Can you just explain for folks who aren't familiar with the process how we go about coming up with these names?
So if I could direct the question to Director Ashton?
Yeah, so we do have a council-approved list of names, and ironically, we have updated it recently internally, and I believe next month we will be bringing it forward to either Planning Advisory Committee or Council. We have to go over the logistics of that. So a lot of them are named after people. A lot of the street names are also named after other things that are not people. So quick, we can find that out for you. That's a little, I don't have the history on the back of my hands on that.
Yeah, I wasn't hoping to flummox anybody or trip anybody up with the explanation. I think, and when we do, that would be welcome, is the explanation as to how and where we come up with names. I know there was a list of names submitted for individuals for community involvement, recognition of terms on council. When Councillor Thompson, for instance, finally decides to retire, I don't think we have a highway big enough to name after him, but that sort of thing. I know there are protocols in place, and I would hope we can explain that when and if we do that.
Yeah, and without necessarily the exact history of why the person's on there, but we do work, the current list, we did work with the archives as well, creating a list.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other discussion on this item? And calling the question, all in favor? Thank you. Item 8B2, road dedication Quick Street. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Chatton and Councillor Millet. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor? And item 8B5, road dedication Raycroft Drive. Mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Enright Miller and Councillor Chatton. No discussion? All in favor? Thank you, the motion's carried. Item 8C, council information matters. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council may consider them individually. Beginning with Councillor Kelly.
No, thank you.
Councillor Millet.
8C2, please.
Thank you. Councillor Chatton.
No, thank you, Chair.
Mayor Ellis.
No, thank you.
Councillor Alsop.
No, thank you.
Councillor Enright Miller.
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Carr.
No, thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
No, thanks, and I'll come to Councillor Millet later.
So the agenda may be received with the exception of item 8C2. Thank you, Councillor Chatton. Councillor Alsop. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Item 8C2, request support of the following letters and resolutions. And the reads, request the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services to review the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, MFIPA, and consider the recommendations set out in the June 26, 2023 resolution from the City of Chatham-Kent. Could I call for a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Millet, and a seconder, Councillor Enright Miller. Councillor Millet.
Thank you, Chair. And briefly, I want to know if, I read this with interest, as someone who's actually, in my former career, used MFIPA requests, not in a vexatious manner that, well, some might consider it vexatious, I don't know. But as a journalist, we frequently used freedom of information requests. My question is through to the clerk. I see that the City of Chatham-Kent must clearly be having issues addressing the requests and the nature of requests for MFIPA applications. My question, I guess, is before I see if we need to perhaps endorse some of their concerns or their calls for revisions to the Act, are we having similar issues? Is it onerous on our staff for some of these, and are we experiencing vexatious and as they pointed out, in some cases, legal outlets using MFIPA requests for expeditions where our staff is basically doing the work that their legal staff could be doing on their dime. Just perhaps an overview before I suggest we endorse the City of Chatham-Kent's recommendation or resolution.
Thank you. So I'll direct the question to our city clerk.
Through the chair to Councillor Millet and all of council, I think certainly the City of Belleville has experienced this. We have, I think, at least 3 applications before the Information Privacy Commissioner's Office seeking a frivolous and vexatious declaration against applicants who've got multiple files, one in the 20s, so requests for information through the Act. We are not alone. Chatham-Kent is not alone in experiencing this. I would say within the last decade, the instances of solicitors using the Act and the $5 fee, which has not changed in the 30 years of the Act, which is just the start. There's a fee schedule contained in the Act that allows for the request of records to see if a file is worthwhile representing a resident. It is onerous, the search for records. So in the 30 years of the Act, as you can imagine, you're all sitting here with some type of electronic device. The volume of files the municipality has care and control over has increased drastically in 30 years. So every record that is sitting on this desk or that is generated by an electronic device is a record of the corporation. Every sticky note that any of you or any staff writes and attaches to a piece of paper qualifies for a record under the Act. So when we receive requests, certainly staff in my office and staff in the city of the corporation treat those with the care and control that they must. When we request those, the volume that must be given the care to respond to a request is taken seriously. But the volume of requests has dramatically increased. And it continues. And so I think that is one thing to manage and to give its due respect. I think the nature of the requests have changed significantly. And I think it's probably in the last decade. So drastic increase in volume, but the tone and the means which with it the information is being used has shifted. So the increase in requests of the government to at least review that act and what, the amount of fees that can be charged, the time that you collect them and when you collect them, because we put a lot of work and effort into collecting all those records on the front end, give a fee estimate to the applicant, and they can say no thanks at that point. And so all that effort and time and resources of the municipality has been expended on the front, and sometimes to no effect.
Thank you. And with that in mind, I'll acquiesce to the chair. I would, if I may, move that we endorse the resolution of the City of Chatham-Kent. If for any other reason, then the act does indeed need a review, clearly, from some of the information that Mr. McDonald's given us today. And I don't know if I need a second on that.
So,
Friendly amendment?
I was just going to say, Councillor Enright Miller, you support? Yes. Okay. Any further discussion? Councillor Chatton?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'm just wondering, which department is most impacted by the Freedom of Information Act? Is it bylaw, or is it just widespread across the entirety of the municipality?
So again, I'll refer that to the city clerk.
Through the chair to Councillor Chatton. So corporate services is delegated as the head. The deputy clerk, who's sitting right behind me, is delegated the head for the purposes of MFIPA. It is a council. I am unaware of any municipality who retains the obligation under the Act. Every council delegates that the authority to staff. Generally, it's the clerk's office, and certainly here, by bylaw, it's the deputy clerk. So corporate services is in charge of administering the act on behalf of the city, but it spreads out almost immediately depending on the nature of the request. We narrow it to the departments that we, with due consideration, think would have records responsive to the request. And the act allows for us to ask the requester to narrow the scope of their request if we think we're going to get 20,000 records. But in general terms, on most requests, we anticipate receiving 300, 400, 500 responses from even in a very narrow, if you requested a response on a specific time period for your property, we're going to get a significant response. And then the department and the clerk's department have to look at every record and make sure that the act continues to protection of privacy. So we have to make sure that we're not providing information that has to be protected. So it has to be redacted on our end. So every record has to be looked at from start to finish, and redactions have to be made. So it's not as simple as we get electronic records, 5,000 pages, and we just staple them or electronically send them, because you can choose either paper copy, hard, or electronic response. We don't just get them from the department and send them immediately. The department looks at them, makes recommendations about redactions for the protection of privacy, and then we look at them as well. So it is a resource-heavy undertaking.
Thank you.
Thank
Follow
you.
on?
Yes, a follow-up. So given that information, it would follow that it would be a generally low number that could qualify as vexatious, correct? If they're requiring 600 pages from 8 different areas of the municipality to be compiled, even after saying no once, twice might be actually too much.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Chatton, our test for frivolous or vexatious is very high. That bar is incredibly high. So you'd be into double-digit requests before we would even seek it. And the Information and Privacy Commissioner, who oversees the administration of the Act, so in the Act and in all of our responses, if a requester disagrees with any of our decisions or we miss a timeline, the appeal is to the Privacy Commissioner's office. That's who we would seek that designation from. Their bar is incredibly high. They're very much on the side of open government, so release all information that is able to be released. So we understand where their bar is or about, and so we err on the side of, work with requesters on all cases. And there's been a shift in the last decade towards that anyways, and we realize that. So open and transparent government is the goal. So where we're able to, we work outside of the Act anyways, and we provide information where it's available. When we get to double digits and then they want more, and the answer is, I don't think these are all the records, and they submit another one, and a fee waiver, and another one. And so the instance that comes to mind, we have one, we're in active litigation with a resident. I think we have 23 active requests, fee waivers on all of them, change in scope on many of them. Almost all of our provision of records have been appealed to the Privacy Commissioner. That's frivolous and vexatious. I mean, we're looking at almost 11 years since the first request for records specific to a single property, and every file, every request has been the same properties, same applicant, and we're not done yet. So in my estimation, the amount of resources provided to that file is not productive, and I'm not sure that we can satisfy the requester. So we've made that request, but that's the type that get to that point. So it's certainly not common that we seek that. I doubt Chatham-Kent gets to that point easily either. The majority of my municipal colleagues, our association, the professional association, has sought FaceTime with the minister responsible for this act, seeking a review of it and its ability to deal with records in the common time. I mean, 30 years ago when it was written, I'm not sure it contemplated computers and the modern method of communication. So from my perspective, it's due for a review. If nothing changes, still review.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Thank you. The motion's carried. Motion to rise and report, please. Thank you, Councillor Carr, Councillor Enright Miller. All in favor?
Switch to bylaws. I need a motion for the first reading of bylaw 2023-158, 159, 160, 161, 162, 163, and 164. Councillor Alsop and Councillor Enright Miller. All in favor? Carried. Second reading and discussions of bylaw 2023, 158, 159, 160, 161, 162, 163, 164. Moved by Councillor Chatton, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Third and final reading of bylaws 2023, 158, 159, 160, 161, 162, 163, and 164. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Alsop. All in favor? Carried. New business. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mayor. Two items. I know that we had previously budgeted some money towards some preliminary design work under the 401 to continue the trail north, and I believe the staff will bring forward something through transportation, hopefully, and we'll get that off to capital budget. But in the meantime, I'd like to request that the detailed design for Old Highway 2 between Hague Road and Point Anne Road be included in the draft 2024 capital budget for council consideration. Thank you.
Do we need a mover and a seconder for that? No? Okay, thank you. Any more new business? Councillor Enright Miller?
Thank you, Chair. I just have a little report. Sorry, my fellow colleagues. As Chair of the Accessibility Committee, if you'll indulge me, my intent this evening was to seek support for a motion for the accessibility parking feasibility study, but after meeting with Director of Finance Brandon Ferguson
and Director of Corporate Services, Matt McDonald, following our BAAC committee meeting, it appears we have approved budgeted money for a parking study, and staff have been working on the details to issue a RFP for the same. So I thank you both for meeting with me. I would like to offer some background information to my colleagues, if you will indulge me. The BAAC committee, which I am fortunate enough to chair alongside Councillor Kelly, have been examining the issues of accessibility parking requirements in Belleville. This started as part of the public review for the building zoning bylaw March 2023, in which 15.4 sets out the requirement for accessibility parking. At the August 1st meeting of the BAAC, a motion was passed that a minimum of 10% of the capacity of the parking area, i.e. the number of spaces rounded up, must be accessible. The problem is that there is no data concerning the use of accessibility parking spaces on different days, at different times, and at different locations. Director Steve Ashton of Engineering made a presentation to the BAAC at the September 5th meeting, and thank you very much, Stephen, very informative, in which he stated that the issue with the 10% is that it is higher than the other municipalities surveyed that have been reviewed, and we at the BAAC knew it was a little robust number, but for us it was a place to start. Half of the municipalities that were reviewed used the IASR public spaces standard. Stephen shared that in Gananoque, the requirement is that one accessible parking space shall be provided for every 20 standard parking spaces and part thereof, and shall be included in the total number of parking spaces required under the schedule for parking requirements. Engineering staff asked other stakeholders about the 10%, and overwhelmingly, they felt it was too high. The director made it clear that he was not saying that 10% is unreasonable, it is just that we do not have any data to make this justification to it. And we need to make an informed decision when doing this. So at the September 5th meeting of the BAAC, we unanimously approved two motions. The first is to follow the Gananoque and require a minimum of 5% of the capacity of parking area, or the number of spaces rounded up, and that they must be accessible. And two, that the BAAC strongly recommend that council approve the funds for an accessibility parking study to collect the much needed data. A parking study, we feel, is also needed since the disability rate is increasing due to our aging population and medical diagnostic and treatment improvements. Just some interesting statistics. The population of Belleville, just over 55,000, and the population of Quinte region, approximately 220,000, using the Ontario rate, this means that approximately 13,272 people in Belleville and 53,020 people in the Quinte region live with at least one disability. The aging of Belleville's population, like many Canadian cities, means that the disability rate will increase. Belleville's population is already older than the provincial average, and the average age of residents is expected to increase. Accordingly to a past municipal comprehensive review done by Watson and Association Limited 2013, population growth in Belleville can be attributed mainly to persons over the age of 55. The national data shows that as the Canadian population ages, the disability rate increases to 47.4 for individuals 75 and older. Data and research provide evidence that as the disability rate increases for seniors, the severity of disability also increases. It is essential that all citizens in our city can navigate both their home and community environments with as much ease as possible. Providing adequate accessibility parking is an important way to achieve this goal. Data obtained from the Ministry of Transportation indicates that there are 4,264 active accessibility parking permits in Belleville, and a request has been made to find out the total number of drivers this equates to for current active permits. Some of this number may not be active. We on this committee are so pleased and encouraged that the city continues to take a leadership role for our citizens that deal with accessibility issues on a day-to-day basis. And thank you from the BAAC committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ray Miller. Any more new business? Seeing none, we'll move on to motions. Notice of motions. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mayor Ellis. I give notice that the next meeting of council, I intend to move the following motion. Whereas the Ontario government has assigned the City of Belleville with a housing target of 31 housing starts by the year 2031, and whereas the Ontario government has announced that municipalities with housing targets would also be given strong mayor powers if their head of council has committed to meeting these targets in writing by October 15th, 2023. And whereas it is noted that some strong mayor powers are related to provincial priorities noted in Ontario Regulation 580-2022 and include the following: building 1.5 million new residential units by December 31st, 2031, constructing and maintaining infrastructure to support housing, including transit, roads, utilities, and servicing. And whereas the powers and duties for the head of council and strong mayor municipalities include the following: appoint a chief administrative officer, hire municipal division heads and change organizational structure, create and assign functions and appoint chairs of committees, bring forward matters for council consideration related to provincial priority, bylaw power related to provincial priorities, veto power and council override, including the annual budget process, and direct staff. And whereas many of these strong mayor powers go beyond housing and deal with general governance and municipal operational matters, and whereas the City of Belleville does not actually build housing units, and whereas the Ontario government has not taken specific actions through regulations to make developers develop and builders build, and whereas the Building Faster Fund municipal performance is evaluated based on the municipality's number of housing starts and not municipal approvals, and whereas there has been a decline in housing starts by the private residential building sector in 2023, despite record approvals by the City of Belleville, and whereas the City of Belleville wants to see the supply of new housing starts meet affordability market demand, and whereas the City of Belleville has taken and continues to take results-oriented actions to improve the conditions for increases to the housing supply in our municipality, and whereas the City of Belleville is required by the Ontario government to render decisions on zoning applications within 90 days or otherwise be subject to financial penalty, and whereas the City of Belleville would prefer to see a provincial funding program based on the merits of new residential unit growth plan approvals versus the quid pro quo nature of strong mayor powers, whereas the City of Belleville believe that the strong mayor powers and the Building Faster Fund are misaligned. Now therefore be it resolved that the Mayor and Council of the City of Belleville reject the proposal to grant strong mayor powers within the City of Belleville, and that the Mayor and Council of the City of Belleville believe that preserving our current system of governance, which emphasizes democratic checks and balances, is essential for the well-being and representation of our community members, and that the Mayor and Council oppose the concentration of power in a single executive office and advocate for the continuation of our current form of government, and that the Building Faster Fund be corrected so that municipal performance be based on housing start approvals for which the municipality has direct control, and that the Ontario government create a use it or lose it provincial zoning policies so that it prevents land speculation, creating unnecessary delays in the development of land for residential housing, and that the Ontario government set housing targets for the private residential building sector, and that significant monetary penalties be set for failure to meet the housing targets, and that the monetary fines collected be allocated to the corresponding municipality to go solely towards not-for-profit affordable housing projects, and that this motion be forwarded to Premier Doug Ford, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing Paul Calandra, Minister Todd Smith, MPP for Bay of Quinte, Hastings, Lennox and Addington MPP Rick Burries, and municipalities within the Ontario Municipal Association. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Any other notice of motions? Seeing none, announcements. Councillor Alsop?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ellis. Whereas last year, 232 railway crossings and trespassing incidents occurred in Canada, resulting in 66 avoidable fatalities and 43 avoidable serious injuries, educating and informing the public about rail safety, including reminding the public that railway rights-of-way are private property, enhancing public awareness of the dangers associated with highway rail grade crossings, ensuring pedestrians and motorists are looking and listening while near railways, and obeying established traffic laws will reduce the number of avoidable fatalities and injuries caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. Operation Lifesaver is a public-private partnership whose aim is to work with the public, rail industry, governments, police services, media, and others to raise rail safety awareness. CN has requested City Council adopt this resolution in support of its ongoing efforts to raise awareness, save lives, and prevent injuries in communities, including our municipality. It is hereby resolved to support National Rail Safety Week, held from September 18th to 24th, 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Alsop. Councillor Wright Miller?
Thank you, Chair. Canada's forests are valuable, renewable resources that continue to our economy and livelihoods of our communities. Whereas Canada's forests play a crucial role in maintaining healthy ecosystems, clean air and water, and wildlife habitats, whilst being an important aspect of climate change mitigation efforts. Whereas the City of Belleville and its citizens rely on the surrounding forests for livelihood, health, and recreation. Whereas this annual one-week campaign with the theme of Canada's Forests, supporting biological diversity, will be celebrated across Canada by individuals and organizations. Therefore, on behalf of the City of Belleville, I declare September 17th to the 23rd, 2023 as National Forest Week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright Miller. Councillor Millette?
Thank you, Your Worship. World Mitochondrial Disease Week takes place from September 18 to 24 to raise awareness for mitochondrial disease, also known as mito. It's a little bit easier term than mitochondrial. The human body is fueled by trillions of microscopic powerhouses called mitochondria. Presently, in almost every cell in our body, these tiny but mighty energy-producing structures generate the energy we need to survive. Mitochondrial disease can affect anyone at any age. There is currently no cure. To help raise awareness of this disease, September 23rd monuments across the globe will be lighting up in green, including our bridges and our other monuments here in town, to raise awareness for mito, including those here in Belleville. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millette. Councillor Kelly?
Thank you, Mayor, through you. September is Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Awareness Month. This is its 24th year, started in 1999. FASD is a group of conditions that may occur when someone is exposed to alcohol before birth. It is a physical brain-based disability that affects multiple systems of the body. FASD is one of the leading neural development disabilities in Canada, with 4% of the population having it and 1 in 20 children going undiagnosed. There are many citizens in the Quinte area living with or have suspected FASD, which is why it's important to bring more awareness to the disorder. No amount of alcohol is safe when pregnant. Also, the Red Shoes Rock is a global campaign that was launched to bring awareness and give support to those with FASD. So dig out your red shoes this September to show your support. This past Saturday was also International FASD Day. And I also just want to acknowledge the local connections to this special month. Carrie Cater and Christine Gayak. They work at the Quinte Children's Treatment Center. They work with local children with FASD. And Lisa Newman-Chesser has been a strong supporter for families in her role at Quinte Children's Treatment. Also, too, Ontario has Sandy's Law. A little history lesson for you. Former MPP Ernie Parsons, Bill 43 back in 2005, 18 years ago, was instrumental in making sure that restaurants and bars have a display set up or a poster with signs that show the effect of alcohol during pregnancy. So Ernie Parsons was a longtime MPP in Hastings, Prince Edward. A couple of other notes too. Am I allowed to? Thank you. I want to acknowledge Joy Martin. She's still here in the gallery. She's on the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Committee with her special award. She's an unbelievable community advocate, so engaged in Belleville and area, and thank you for everything you do, Joy. Heather Candler, Director of Economic Development, sent me along a couple of notes. Career fair this Wednesday starts at 1 at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center. Over 50 employers. Bring your resume if you're looking for a gig. Lots of jobs there. A couple of weeks ago, the mayor, myself, had a chance, along with Heather, to tour. Steve Ashton, I believe, was there. Mr. Bove from the city. The new Amazon plant. It's soon up and going, and this is an unbelievable place. I asked some real tough questions how big it is, and it's 18 football fields, NFL fields. The project, when they announced Amazon coming to Belleville, they had a secret name for it. It was called Project Toro. So the contractors and everybody was referring to it as Project Toro, named after the OHL Belleville Bulls. One of the lead designers, engineers, loved the Bulls from the Ottawa area, and they called it Project Toro. We wish Amazon all the best. And this is the last week of the pop-ups, so hopefully I'll have a chance to get out and visit the pop-ups at Westwick's Park. And there might be something special happening in downtown right across from City Hall soon with a pop-up. And finally, this past weekend, I ventured to the east, went to Tandanaga to enjoy the Mohawk Fair and continue to build relationships with our friends to the east. The food was unbelievable. I did not try the caribou stew. Lots of dance, real educational weekend. So congratulations to everybody that put together the Mohawk Fair. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. So now we move to the confirmatory bylaw, the bylaw number 2023-165, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on September 11th, 2023, be read a first, second, third time, and finally passed this 11th day of September. Councillor Chatton, Councillor Enright Miller, all in favor, carried, and we move to adjournment. Moved by Councillor Alsop, Councillor Carr, all in favor, carried. Thank you.
My mother drank.